the anxiety caused by debt, it's a greedy beast of our contentment. And when you think of, like Paul said, he was content everywhere, whether well-fed or hungry. And he's in a prison, he's not being well-fed. He doesn't have a comfortable bed. So where is our contentment? Well, one of the things that we want to emphasize, and we say this right in the first chapters, is it's all God's on loan to us. It's not ours. We don't give him a certain percent. It's 100% his. So it's about stewardship, and where do we go for truth for that? The scripture. So everything is foundation. For instance, one of the first things we say is first you earn and then you spend. It's a Proverbs verse.
Well, that is so telling, too, because I think we feel like the money's our own. And, you know, as the verse says, no one can serve two masters, and that is example given is mammon, which means money, and God. No one can serve money and God. And so we know that number one, or one of the number one gods that pulls us away from God that we can't serve is without even realizing it, we're serving money. So that's really a key thing you've said there about we've got to remember it is all God's. Give us a little bit of your story and then lead us up, you know, through your lives and why you've written this book and what you find is important about it.
Sure. Well, we're coming at the topic from a biblical worldview. So talking about money in light of that and managing it and stewarding it wisely. So my mom has a widow's ministry and I did finance and law. So the way we got started on this topic, it was almost kind of over the backyard fence questions, we'll say. Through the widow's ministry, right on the heels of working with women that were having grief, were these questions about well, what about the money issues? Because right on the heels of that grief were money problems. Either, oh, I didn't know we had this much debt, or, boy, I've never done the finances before. The husband had already done that in many, many cases. So we wrote this book and have a radio feature, and it was all coming out of those conversations. We just saw the same topics again and again of either, wow, I didn't know we had that, or suddenly managing a whole lot, suddenly half owner of a manufacturing company. So we were seeing particularly women being thrown into situations after a major life change, and some of the same themes coming over and over. How to steward it well, getting that confidence, and also avoiding fraud.
And I would just add that one of the things that's documented in research is that women lack financial confidence. And it isn't that we're not capable of learning everything we need to do, and we actually can and we will. We already oversee over half the wealth in the United States, women do. And that's going to grow to 3/4 very shortly. We are finding ourselves overseeing a lot of money. This means God is entrusting us with this great responsibility. So we can't say, oh, I didn't know, or oh, I was busy. This is ours to learn about. And I mentioned before that first we earn and then we spend, and our culture says don't do it that way. And the verse says, till your field and then build your house or pitch your tent. Well, that means get your job and then buy a house that the mortgage fits in your job, and don't accumulate debt. And Valerie is a research person with numbers and all that, and debt for men and women is just, it isn't God honoring, and we call it a greedy beast of our money.
That's true. And so we've seen, again, back to this theme of maybe one of the statistics that Mom was referring to is that 80% of the time she will be carrying that baton to the end. It will be that he will go to heaven first and that she will go next. And so if we look at it as far as resources and how that's to be stewarded, we know that women will be managing finances, and it's not an option of, oh, I don't want to handle the finances. It's that we will. or will it handle us, so to speak, if we don't handle that? So the Bible is an incredible source of wisdom for handling finances, managing money, being an excellent steward. God gave us what we need to know, and there's a lot of great expertise from the world out there as well, but we can always balance that in light of Scripture. We don't live on the same system that the world necessarily lives on. The one who dies with the most toys wins. We have a different worldview than that of what did the Lord give us to steward and what would He like us to do with His stuff. And so we need to assess what we're working with and how to work best with that. So we talk about assessing what we have, what do we owe and what do we own. And then let's get a spending plan, or that bad word budget, and knowing how to invest. And then how do we be generous? I mean, what's the why? Are we just packing it on to accumulate, make a few bigger barns, or would we really like to serve the Lord with out of that surplus that we would build then? And that's really our goal, to kind of walk women through that process and have them really be confident to go out into the world and do all the things that God has made them equipped to do.
Well, I would think that people don't even realize that the Bible says not to go in debt. I think that would be a real surprise.
Well, we have a few chapters on that. We get very specific. There are only a few cases where you can, and the criteria for that. And for the people watching, and I know you address parents a lot, we set the example. So if parents are accumulating debt and swiping the credit card and, oh, my kid needs a smartphone, and it's an example. That might not be true, but I think you know what I'm talking about. Then we are teaching them, even without saying a word. We address that. But the other thing about family and generations, and I know you're all about that, we're a steward not just of what we have, but when we leave, do we pass on what we have in a wise way? And we have chapters on Roth IRAs and trusts and wills and all. And we break it down. It's really simple language. It's not all legal language, although we footnote to resources like that. But we want to say, okay, if God has entrusted me this, and then I leave this planet, have I put it in a good tool to go wisely, and have I talked to my family about where it's going and that kind of things? So we get real practical because that's who we are. And by the way, her children have heard this stuff, and my grandchildren,
That's right.
they've heard the message loud and clear.
Yeah, my young boys are like, Mom, say that budget word one more time. You know, they're over it, but they are living it and taking it in. But boy, have they ever heard it quite a bit.
Passing on the good,
Yes.
good information.
Yes, yes.
Whether they necessarily think it is or not, right? They are absorbing.
That's right.
Oh, they do.
Definitely. For sure. And so specifically with debt, why are some of the things that God doesn't want us to be in debt? I mean, I've heard it compared to almost like a slavery. You're owned by that debt, and then you have to pay this interest, which you wouldn't have to pay if you weren't in debt. But help me, why is it not good to have debt?
Yeah, well, the Bible talks about the borrower's slave to the lender. And so if you think about it, whatever would come in, if you're in debt, that's already spoken for. So what happens when the Lord brings someone across your path that needs help? It's already spoken for. In other words, you're going to work for that master. And really, we want to go to work for the Lord, our master, right? So we can't really step into all the things I think God has for us if we're deeply in debt and just can't get out of it. I don't think it's excellent stewardship to be paying the interest rates that we would need to pay with that. And then also just at the root of it, are we consuming more than we were meant to consume? If we're going underwater to do that, and we have compassion for folks that have a one-time incident and they don't have a choice. So we're really not speaking to that, but we're talking about a lifestyle of consumption that is way outdoing what we're bringing in. And I would just really evaluate folks to think about, is that really what the Lord has for them? What about a lifestyle, and what about contentment? We're to be in the world but not of it. So are we really to be looking around to the world to say, I should have this, I should own that, I should look like this, I should accumulate that? Or do we want to care about the things that God cares about? And so I think those are just some of the reasons why we say debt can be a greedy beast and it can get a hold of things that were really meant to be God's. And I think He meant for us to share with others.
And if I might add, what Valerie's talking about, we have anxiety about that. And there's research that says people are less productive at work, and one reason is how they are anxious about their finances, and it makes them less productive. Well, part of why they're anxious is they know the credit card bill is coming, and maybe they're prepared to pay that minimum amount, which the credit card company loves that because the interest they're going to be charging you goes money in their pocket, not in generosity, not in wise spending. So the anxiety caused by debt, it's a greedy beast of our contentment. And when you think of, like Paul said, he was content everywhere, whether well-fed or hungry. And he's in a prison. He's not being well-fed. He doesn't have a comfortable bed. So where is our contentment? And one of the things that Valerie writes about, we share the writing in the book, by the way. She says, if you think you want that and you're going to order it online, put it in the cart and don't touch it for a month, and then see how important it is a month later. Or go to the grocery store with only cash. How embarrassed are you going to be if what you have in your cart is beyond what's in your wallet? So we do some really practical things that may sound elementary, but sometimes we need to hear that. Just don't buy it now. If it's vital, then it's going to be something that you can wait for. You're not starving today, you're not cold today. Wait until you have cash to pay for it.
Yeah, and I think just one more thing about debt is it keeping us in a job that may not be where the Lord would take us? If we had some margin, if we had a little bit of buffer there, if we're no longer in the job that the Lord called us to and He may be calling us somewhere else, do we have the freedom to go there? And that takes margin. That gives us options. Even in retirement, are we needing to work longer because of our consumption, or could we be volunteering or serving in those years? So it's just really something that when we were writing this and addressing the debt topic, we really just want people to be free to walk into all that the Lord would have for them.
I want to mention the name of the book again, Wise Women Managing Money. In that book, do you address what to do then if you've got yourself, which a lot of people have themselves in that trap of debt? I don't want to say it that way, because no, if you do have that trap, God is waiting to get you out. There's a way. These ladies probably have it in their book. So there's hope, and God is a miracle working God. But then also, I think one of the debt that people don't even realize, which is the credit card companies don't want you to realize, is that debt is also associated when you are not paying off everything on your credit card. That is also debt, because you're rolling it over to the next month and the next month. That is a form of debt and will get you in trouble. And so how do you get out of that?
Yeah.
What do you do?
Well, I would say generally there might be two buckets there to look at.
Okay.
There may be the kind of debt that has accumulated that you just need assistance. So let's set that aside for just one moment, that you may not be able to get out of on your own. And then there's the kind of debt where, hey, we could do this. It's not going to be fun or easy, but it's going to be doable. And just like we build muscle to work out, that'll build that muscle of paying that off, right? So we don't walk up to a 1,000-pound barbell and just lift it. We build that muscle little by little. So that process of, if it's something that we can get out of on our own, we first have to take stock of, well, what do we owe and what do we own? And is what we have coming in enough to start to walk out of that? So that just takes, getting it down on paper, Excel spreadsheet, some app, wherever it would be, you need to get that in front of you, and then just get a plan to start walking out and stop adding to it. I think that would be another thing. Rolling it over to just another credit card, but leaving the one open could mean now you've maxed that out, but now you've got another one. So we want to work on the behavior that maxed that out to begin with. I call it just stop the bleeding. And then just start to walk out of that little by little. There is a point where folks may have gotten into so much debt that they just can't do it alone. And that's where you want a reputable credit consulting or counseling company out there. And there are the good ones and there are the not so great ones. So that's something to really research, but they can help folks that just are way in over their head.
And we mentioned some of those in the book where basically they kind of take your paycheck and give you a little allowance to live on, and they negotiate with your creditors to get those down and that kind of thing. And rather than going to a lot of time on it, we have the details in the book, and that is an option. Some people need to grab that. It just is kind of beyond what they can handle. But what Valerie said about shrink your spending plan, there are habits that we just have to break. Autopilot when you're overspending is crash ahead. I just made that up, Val.
I think it's pretty good.
God is love, and love comes from God. In 1 John, the Bible tells us that God is not only all-loving, but that He actually is love itself. The heart of the Parent Compass television show is to bring the transforming love of God to families everywhere. In every Parent Compass episode, true stories reveal family struggles and how their lives were radically changed by the love of God. Parent Compass, an award-winning television series, is completely funded by people like you. If you have been touched by God and you want to share God's love to others, would you please pass it on? Jesus tells us to go into all the world and to tell about Him. With your donation, you allow us to take this television show into many different nations and in many different languages, free of charge. And a portion of your donation goes to Parent Compass Outreach to feed starving children. Your gift does so much. To make your tax-deductible gift, go to parentcompass.tv/donate. That's parentcompass.tv/donate. And thank you for sending love and hope around the world.